That's right, ladies and gentlemen, we're back. After a few weeks off, back with another episode of Woo Fantasy. Myself here,
Woo!
Roto Superstar himself, Brandon Murkison, as you heard in the background there. That is Nicholas Heffley. Mr. Heffley, how are we doing?
The real FF GOAT. I am amazing, man. We're inching closer and closer toward fantasy football season, and one of, I know, our favorite times, the NFL draft.
Exactly, NFL draft right around the corner. We're going to kind of get into some topics with that, talk a little bit about some prospects coming into the draft, some landing spots that we might like, or even spots where I might have them landing myself, and some of the NFL draft previews that I've been doing on rotoballer.com. If you've not been paying attention to those, I'm pumping those out daily leading up to the draft. So if you've not headed over to rotoballer.com to check those out, please do. Of course, I am posting those on the Twitter page at Roto Superstar every single day as well. But kicking things off, we kind of missed a few things over the last couple weeks or so since our last podcast that we did here. Got some free agent signings, trades, fantasy implications on the landscape that's going to affect your drafts and mine and Nick's. So we're going to kind of talk and cover a little bit about that. First and foremost, of course, the biggest news that came out, Antonio Brown, officially an Oakland Raider now. How are we feeling?
Yuck. Yeah, I mean, just look at exactly what Amari Cooper has done. I mean, I don't think it's a completely horrible situation, but he goes from easily being the number one fantasy wide receiver to maybe a third. I'm sure some guys are going to take him in like second, third round, but he's a guy that you got to take he's a big question mark. I mean, you saw what Amari Cooper did once he left Carr and went to the Cowboys and had an offense that actually threw the ball to him. What is Antonio Brown going to get? I don't think I want to be touching all that in the second or third round.
Yeah, no, like I think currently right now, some of my redraft rankings that I've got that are in the works currently, I've got Antonio Brown 16th off the board right now. So yeah, you're looking at a mid-second round guy, and depending on how you start your draft, I mean, you're turning around, you're looking at later end of the first round, likely going to be going with a running back with the first selection. But say you start off wide receiver, and get like a DeAndre Hopkins mixed with Antonio Brown, or say you go Juju Smith-Schuster, which is ironic in itself, mixed with an Antonio Brown. How are you feeling about that kind of a start?
Juju is probably going up the draft boards now. I mean, he's going to be one of those guys that, he was good anyway heading into this year, but I think this easily vaults him in front of Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown was giving Juju, crap in the here.
Yeah, just
yesterday. What was it, the other day? Yeah. Well, that's great. He's gonna be ranked ahead of you now.
Yeah, blaming the Steelers' loss and inability to make the playoffs, throwing Juju Smith-Schuster under the bus. I don't think that's not the way to do things, and I think it's going to affect Antonio Brown going forward. I was talking to someone just the other day through Twitter, some of the other experts and stuff, and I said Antonio Brown's, it takes brass. This guy's got stones to go out there and continue to talk the way that he is talking right now when you've got David Carr throwing you the ball. Or Derek Carr, never mind. David. It might as well be David, but Derek Carr. Derek Carr's throwing the ball.
I really have to think each time when I think which Carr brother I'm about
one of the D cars,
say.
Whichever
I'm
one.
always thinking David. Yeah, D Carr. Come on, parents, give him a different freaking name.
Yeah, I mean, but it was like I said. I mean, you don't have Roethlisberger forcing passes to you anymore. You don't have the seamless Steelers offense to rely on. But you're out here throwing shade at a guy that outperformed you, mind you, last year in your own offense. You're wanting to throw shade at that guy? Yeah, good luck with that. I think there's going to be a lot of defenders that I think are going to want to stick it to Antonio Brown, and I think some of your more elite cornerbacks in the NFL are probably going to go out with the mentality to shut him down on a weekly basis. But not to mention the fact that Derek Carr is just a bad quarterback. I mean, we saw it last year, even with Amari Cooper in the fold, you just couldn't get the ball to the guy. I mean, routinely throwing balls, you know, below the sticks or throwing them well over a guy's head in some of the crossing routes, things like that. It's just Derek Carr's not a good quarterback. I've felt like since this trade went down that Antonio Brown's stock has just dropped precipitously. And I mean, I don't want any part of the guy. It's not anything that has to do with Antonio Brown's character and how he's been as a person the last few weeks. I just don't. I don't see the guy that's the bona fide top 5 wide receiver that he's been for the last several years in this offense now. So yeah, I more than likely he will be a guy that I will be passing on in drafts as we get to that point.
I just want to know when we became a podcast for millennials, throwing shade on somebody. I don't even know these terms. What the hell are you talking about? No.
Great. You got to stay true to your audience. I mean, we've got some young listeners out there. I'm sure there's some guys, some of these, the ages that we were when we started in the fantasy football landscape. We had our own phrases that we used. I'm sure the guys that are listening to this podcast now that are that same age, you gotta keep them abreast to all the lingo that's out there right now.
And Antonio Brown is not on fleek.
No, he is not. I really do. He does feel like the type of guy though he's got the money. Now the work is not going to be put out on the field. I really do feel like that's going to be the case with Antonio Brown in 2019 and beyond. But the other Steeler that moved on since the last time we talked, Le'Veon Bell, officially a New York Jet. Which, by the way, both of these two moves I was well out in front of. I called Antonio Brown to the Raiders. I called Le'Veon Bell to the Jets.
And OBJ going to Cleveland, I believe you called as well.
Yeah. I mean, I was kind of right on with a lot of these, and it's amazing when you keep your ear to the ground, some of the things you wind up hearing. But yeah, Le'Veon Bell to the Jets.
Too bad it doesn't translate into your fantasy game.
Yeah, but, because God forbid I have any type of luck whatsoever when it comes to the fantasy game in real life. So, yeah, Le'Veon to the Jets. Increase, even decrease his fantasy value in your eyes?
I was thinking it really didn't do much for me that he was going to the Jets, but then I saw those new uniforms and I was like, you know what? Maybe he's gonna have a little bit better year. The jerseys look a little quicker, not so 1960s.
Aerodynamic.
No, yeah, it looks like Neil O'Donnell's about to step out and freaking throw a football out there, Boomer Esiason. No, I think Le'Veon is actually. I mean, I don't. Granted, he's another Steeler going off to in this case greener pastures.
Hey, words.
Yeah. But he's definitely his value definitely decreases. But I think he at worst is a late first. I think he's still going to get catches. I think he's still going to get a lot of action because I think they're going to run that offense through him. I mean, Sam Darnold toward the end of last year, if you paid attention, was coming around a little bit. So I think this offense in year 2 is going to feature him a little bit more. That he's going to dump off some passes.
Yeah, I mean,
do I think he's still that high like he was last year? No, but he's not that far off.
Yeah. I mean, I could probably put him in that 7 to 8 range at running back right now and feel confident about it, and that's going to put him at the tail end of the first round. But the coaching change is probably the bigger thing that worries me. We've not seen Adam Gase have any success with running backs in his tenure as a head coach when he was in Miami.
As a coordinator, yes.
As a coordinator, sure. So, are we going to see Adam Gase with the mindset of the coordinator to try to successfully hone in on the skills of his young second-year quarterback and his new prize running back in the backfield? I mean, Elijah McGuire at the end of last year was doing some work. helping some people win some fantasy matchups at the end of last year. Can we get Le'Veon Bell production in a Jet uniform with Adam Gase as the head coach? I am very hesitant on that. But if he's there at the tail
I
end
think
of
I'm a
the
lot more
first
bullish
round,
on him than you.
I'm stamping it. Yeah, I'm gonna take him if he's there at the end of the first round. It will be hard to turn away from the guy with that talent. The offensive line is really not that bad. You have to figure there's gonna be a lot of potential for catches, PPR format wise. So I mean, you're looking at a guy that's probably gonna, like I said, get drafted as about the 7th, 8th running back off the board. It right there in that mix with Joe Mixon, Melvin Gordon, the likes of that. He, I right now with a lot of the question marks with Todd Gurley and the knee injury and how healthy he really is moving forward, you could almost make the case that Todd Gurley's moving down and you could move Le'Veon Bell up. So
Yeah, I mean,
that's what I'm
I'm
looking
sure it
for.
depends on when you do your draft too. I'm sure people see early in the preseason if he even plays at all.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's going to have some kind of an effect on
Well,
where
there
these
was some
guys are going and when you
some
draft.
report the other night, yeah, and it was like some beat reporter for Los Angeles that said that Todd Gurley was seen coming out of a restaurant with a noticeable limp. I mean, that's just yeah. Here we are in April now. You're getting close to OTAs and everything, and not very far off from training camps getting started up. I mean, we're looking at 2.5 months away from that, 3 months away from that. I mean, if they're not going to go surgery route on Todd Gurley and he's just going to work his way through this, you have to think this guy's probably going to miss time throughout the regular season. So, and they let C.J. Anderson
Team to
go.
keep in mind is a former Tennessee Vol.
John Kelly, yep. John Kelly's a guy that you can grab at the very tail end of some drafts, but of course, they re signed Malcolm Brown. They let CJ Anderson walk. So they feel like they've got capable backs behind Gurley that can step in and get the job done with Brown and John Kelly. So, yeah, those are some guys. That's, like what we continue to preach on this show is handcuff, handcuff, handcuff. If you take the risk and jump out on a Todd Gurley in a draft this year, you better make sure you get yourself Malcolm Brown. A lot
You
of
got
the
to jump
owners,
early. I mean,
you're gonna have to, yes. Nah, I mean that's
we've seen it. We've seen it every year. I mean,
last year with
it is
Le'Veon Bell and James
rare.
Conner. I mean,
It is rare for a back to play 16 games, and why one of the reasons I think a lot of people should listen to our advice on this. You and I might not draft a lot of things well, but you and I can freaking get a running back and
yep,
get a right situation because you got to take a handcuff. Because
definitely.
I will preach running backs early and often, but guess what? You still got to take their backup because there is not a huge way that these guys are going to make it through a whole 16 game slate without missing one game. And if it's even one game, it depends on where that one game comes. You may get screwed if you don't have the backup there. So get the backup, keep them on your roster all year, go for it.
You got so much of the mentality now going towards using multiple backs in a backfield to keep everybody healthy, which causes even more of a headache for fantasy owners as well. So, I mean, you're in the first and second round. You're going to take a stab at one of these guys that's like your surefire workhorse running back. So, if you're going to do that, you better make sure you've got your ass covered on the back end when that guy winds up getting hurt and misses a game or two at the middle point of the season, and you need a win to make sure you're still in the playoff hunt. So, I mean, like I just mentioned a minute ago, James Conner was a fantasy savior for most people last year. Whether it be that they already had Le'Veon Bell on their roster or they decided to stick it to the Bell owner and draft James Conner a round or two early, these guys fell into a fantasy goldmine with Conner last year and likely waltzed them all the way to a championship performance as well. So, be sure to grab these guys. You're going to have to go after them a little bit earlier than you like, but you damn well better go get them if you've got one of these stud running backs. That's for sure. But moving on, we did mention just a second ago as well, Odell Beckham. That's the other big news that's kind of been out there since the last time we were on here. Odell Beckham, now a Cleveland Brown. He is immediately vaulted over previously talked about Antonio Brown. I have Beckham over Brown in my rankings currently as we speak.
Oh, 100%.
How are you feeling? What are you feeling like ceiling wise? What's Odell Beckham? You think in that offense with the pieces that they've got in place now, can he put up a top 3 receiver year?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, you got a quarterback like Big Daddy Bakes there. I mean, you got somebody that is gonna throw the ball. That offense is going to be dynamic. I think Odell. I mean, as far as rankings wise, maybe a pick or two higher than what he would have been had he stayed with the Giants there. Um, but I mean, I think we're still going. I'd say mid to late first round on him. I think he's going to have a great year.
Yeah.
I would take him high and with no qualms. I mean, he's back with his boy from LSU, Jarvis Landry. I mean, he's excited. They're excited. They got a great quarterback that can actually throw in the ball. Tell me if I'm missing something. I think he's gonna be. I think he's gonna have a really good year.
I do too, but I think the top, like that top upper echelon at receiver right now. I mean, you can mix it. I mean, it's like apples to oranges with these guys. I'd be willing to say that DeAndre Hopkins and Devontae Adams for me is just stone cold lock 1-2 at receiver currently. But once you get past that, I mean, you can open up the debate. Would you put Michael Thomas ahead of Odell Beckham?
I think
Possibly. I think I would. I mean, this
yeah.
guy's shown
I would. I
consistency
would.
in that
I would.
offense.
Hundred
But then
percent.
after that, Tyreek Hill, are you going to put Tyreek Hill over to Odell Beckham Jr.? Or are you going to put Juju Smith-Schuster over an Odell Beckham Jr.?
Let's not forget Julio Jones and his 100 catches
Yeah,
a
I
year.
mean Julio Jones made an appearance back in the top half of wide receiver ones last year. I mean I think he put together a solid top 5 wide receiver season last year, getting into the end zone.
Couldn't catch a touchdown, and then finally did it toward the
Yeah,
last half.
finally broke through the glass ceiling of getting into the end zone, and they started coming in bunches at the tail end of the year. So I mean that's what you're looking at right there. After that, for my like I said, with my view, the top 2 are dead set with DeAndre Hopkins and Devontae Adams. I think the consistency with those guys speaks for itself. But after that point, I mean it's wide open. I think you're going to have somebody pull the trigger and jump in on Odell Beckham Jr. based on the hype that we're hearing right now with this offense, with Big Daddy Baker and the Candlestick Maker. I think you're going to get a lot of people that are going to want a piece of this offense and jump on the guy a little bit earlier. I think I've got Beckham right now overall ranking wise going around the spot where if you were a DeAndre Hopkins owner last year, you took him in that 8, 9, 10 range in the first round. So that's kind of where I'm thinking Odell Beckham's going to fall currently.
Yeah, agreed. No, and this even kind of goes to a little nugget, and I'm sure we're going to preview it, the closer we get to the season. But with all these guys that are upper echelon wide receivers, I mean, depending on where you're going, but it definitely is going to play into my strategy a lot to be able to go running back round 1. Because if you go wide receiver round 1, the running backs you're getting back in round 2 are definitely not, ones that I would consider upper echelon. So I think going running back wide receiver 1-2 is going to be the winning play here this year.
Yeah,
But
easily.
I mean, we'll see how things go. We'll see what things shake out for after the draft here. But just thinking about this and all the wide receivers that are just going to be rock freaking solid, and some of the running backs that I think once you get past round 1, I don't feel as confident about. That's going to be a strategy I think I'm going to look to employ and see what I'm getting there.
Yeah, I mean that's something we'll put it into place, and when we start doing some mock drafts, we'll probably throw together some mock drafts that we'll do, and then probably do a little preview stuff with the mock drafts we put together here on the podcast as well, just to kind of give you guys a little bit of a taste and get a little bit of the eagle eye view into how some of the drafts are starting to shake out. But kind of.
And speaking of which, so tell me, so we talked about this a couple of weeks ago whenever this move happened. But where do you have Baker Mayfield ranked right now?
Oh my goodness. Let's see. Let me pull it up real quick because I'm on the page. Baker Mayfield. I've got him number 3 at quarterback currently. Number 3.
Yeah.
Behind Patrick Mahomes and Andrew Luck. I've got him just ahead of Aaron Rodgers and Deshaun Watson. So that's where I have Baker Mayfield currently. What do you feel about that? How are you thinking where he's going to land?
Uh, yeah, I mean, I think you may have guys that are drafted in front of him, but as far as where he gets drafted and where he finishes, I'm seeing him finish, right on the right there around top five range.
Yeah, and I'll be willing to go out on a limb currently right now and tell you that I will own 0 Baker Mayfields in fantasy drafts this year. Even though I love the prospects of Baker Mayfield in this offense, I will own 0 Baker Mayfields because he will get drafted in the 4th round, maybe into the 5th round, and I am not taking a quarterback in the 4th or 5th round in any fantasy draft that I am in this year.
Yeah, no. If you haven't learned by now that you don't need to take a quarterback early, something's wrong. If you're thinking you need to take a QB early,
I mean, just
guys like Pat Mahomes getting drafted late last year.
Exactly.
I mean, if you're going out taking, this is a year. I think Mitch Trubisky makes that next step forward. I mean, there's a lot of guys that you could throw 2 darts at and get one out of the 2 to be able to perform. Matt Ryan. I mean, Matt Ryan was looked at last year like
an
fodder.
afterthought.
I mean, he was going outside of the top 12, finished top 3. I mean, you got guys like that. There's no reason, unless your scoring system's different, to be getting a quarterback that early. No reason whatsoever.
None whatsoever at all. I agree with you there. I mean, that's just, whoo, man. It's people are gonna do it. They're gonna pull the trigger on these quarterbacks early. I can never agree to that. Like we pointed it out over and over again. And if you followed me on Twitter, if you followed this podcast last year leading into drafts, I was all about Patrick Mahomes. I mentioned Patrick Mahomes this, man, Patrick Mahomes that. The only reason I didn't get him in every single league that I'm in is because I do a lot of these leagues with Nick Heffley and with a lot of these guys that we've known for years, and they know how high I am on a player. They're going to go out and snipe me just because, and that's what happened with Patrick Mahomes last year. Everyone knew I was high on him. Everyone kind of started to kind of jump on the bandwagon a little bit. Boom, there you have it. Patrick Mahomes, NFL MVP, wins everybody all kinds of fantasy championships last year. If you own Patrick Mahomes more often than not, you were winning a fantasy championship last year. There's guys that are going to be out there this year that you can get late in the draft that, I mean, you don't have to pay that 4th, 5th round draft capital to plug into your lineup every single week, and the guy will help you win. Just to kind of float a name out there right now, yeah, you mentioned Sam Darnold. I think that's a guy that's going to be able to make a leap here in year 2. Jameis Winston. As much as we hate Jameis Winston a lot of times, and he's just mind-numbingly aggravating watching him try to throw a football inaccurately. I mean, dude's going to be playing for Bruce Arians. There's going to be a lot of fantasy value with the Jameis Winston this year. So, I mean, those
and Bruce Arians, who I think came to that offense. Bruce Arians, who came to that offense just for Jameis.
Yeah, he wanted. He did not want to interview for any other job in the NFL except for the Buccaneers job because he wanted to coach Jameis Winston. Yeah, for some reason he sees something in Jameis that a lot of us don't. So be it. But I mean, I'll buy into a system more than I will the player, and I think that system is going to score a lot of points this year. So, kind of keeping a little bit real quick. Odell Beckham leaves the Giants. We're expecting a full rebuild for this team. Rumors were that they were going to get away from Eli Manning, possibly release him, and just go full rebuild. So what do the Giants do to replace Odell Beckham Jr.? They go out and they sign the aging Golden Tate, 30-year-old receiver, for a 4-year, almost $40 million deal. And the guy plays the exact same position as Sterling Shepard in the slot. Corey Coleman can play a little bit outside, but he's more of a slot receiver type as well. I mean, Giants have no idea what they're doing. Me, as a Cowboys fan, I love to see it. Golden Tate, do you think that there's a revival of Golden Tate's value after the embarrassment that he put forth last year for fantasy owners? Or do you think
I
this is
mean,
pretty much a death nail for him?
I don't want to say it's necessarily a death nail, but I mean, if he's anything better than a number 4 receiver on my team, I'm not feeling good about things.
Not at all.
I think Sterling Shepard's the guy to own in this offense. I mean, obviously, we'll get into draft stuff here in a minute.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it's just going to depend on is Eli the starting quarterback in week 1 or throughout the year. If he is, I think Eli has a penchant, or is going to have more of a penchant to go towards Sterling Shepard and what he knows.
And which, by the way,
I don't really see Golden Tate as anything.
I'll go flip reversal from you. I don't like Sterling Shepard without Odell Beckham Jr. in that offense. He showed last year. I mean, how many times did we talk about it on the podcast? Sterling Shepard, put him in your DFS lineups this week. Odell Beckham Jr. is expected to miss the game. What did Sterling Shepard go out and do each and every week without Odell Beckham Jr. on the field? Squadoosh. Squadoosh. I'll give you that big 0 on the screen right now. Nothing. I mean, the guy is basically the same in the same mold as a Tyler Boyd. If the number 1 receivers on the team is on that field, look out. That guy's he's gonna catch some passes. He's gonna score some points for you in fantasy. Same goes for Sterling Shepard. He cannot be relied on as a wide receiver 1 in this offense, and I don't think Golden Tate is good enough to be a wide receiver 1 in this offense. So your guess is as good as mine on Sterling Shepard's fantasy fortunes in 2019. I'm not a big fan. I think this entire offense is going to go through Saquon Barkley yet again. So, I mean, we'll see how things play out.
And he may take a slight dip.
Possibly. There might
because
be some
there's
regression.
no weapon.
Yeah, it's kind of jumping into the running backs, though, as well. We want to kind of touch on I'll say it's a big signing, but Kareem Hunt, 1-year deal to the Cleveland Browns as well. It's kind of a prove-it deal for Kareem Hunt once he comes back from his 8-game suspension. Of course, the signing immediately worried Nick Chubb dynasty owners or people that are high on Nick Chubb for redraft this year. What are you thinking as far as how this backfield is going to shake out once Hunt makes his return?
Man, I think it's still going to be this Chubb show over there. I mean, Hunt is probably going to play a role whenever he comes in. So in dynasty leagues, it doesn't really affect the value that I have on Chubb. If anything, it might affect value in redraft leagues. But it's one of the things I think, I want to go around early and go get Kareem Hunt. And man, why did Kareem Hunt? Why did he sign there? Why didn't the Bears freaking make this trade with Jordan Howard earlier and go after Kareem Hunt? I would be loving life.
Yeah.
I think Kareem Hunt would be loving life right now, and he'd been going to the Bears because there would be a clear path to playing time over there with Tariq Cohen, who I don't think is a number 1 running back, at least in terms of non PPR. But he's going to catch balls. But I digress. Kareem Hunt. I don't know that I would want him. He's going to be a main guy out there. He's going to split time with Chubb. I mean, I don't think he's somebody that I want to own. I mean, Chubb the first 8 weeks is going to have a lot of value because he's going to be the only game in town.
Yep.
So yeah, I may ding Chubb just a little bit, but not a ton.
Yeah, I think it's going to wind up being one of the situations where if once again handcuff wise, if you draft Nick Chubb, you'll be able to get away with getting Kareem Hunt later in drafts just because of the 8-game suspension. But it won't hurt to have Kareem Hunt on the back end of your roster once he does return, because you never know how that's going to shake out. You don't know if they're going to start to kind of take a little bit of the load off of Nick Chubb after a heavy workload in the first 8 weeks of the season. I could see Hunt digging into those numbers just a little bit, but I do agree with you. I think Nick Chubb is bona fide, easily one of the higher ups RB1s, probably in that 9-10 range. It's where I've got him kind of loaded in right now. I think you're going to. Nick Chubb has every bit of the opportunity to be Kareem Hunt from last year and the year before in this offense. So I do like Hunt though. The closer we get towards the end of the year, I think he's going to have to come in. They're going to have to give him the ball and get him on the field. Let him kind of go out there and prove some things so that he can possibly get another contract in the 2020 offseason. So, potentially going to join the Bears at that point in time. So, who knows? Maybe we're a year away from that actually becoming true. So, but staying with the running backs real quick, a couple more that I want to touch on real fast. Mark Ingram to the Ravens, and my Schwami prediction that I've had in lock, stock, and barrel for over a year now. Tevin Coleman making his obvious addition as a San Francisco 49er. That's another one I've been pegged on, and I've been pegged on it for a year. I've got it on audio with podcast. I've got it on internet with writings that I've done. Tevin Coleman to the 49ers, Mark Ingram to the Ravens. Let's see, Mark Ingram, like we talked about offline before a couple of days ago, for easily our RB2 right now in that offense. How are you feeling about Mark Ingram? What's your take on the now just completely stocked 49ers backfield?
So Tevin Coleman, I'm not a big fan of. I mean, I think he's going to be the guy, but he's got a lot of competition there.
Yep.
I mean, you got Breida, you got Wilson.
You've got Jerick McKinnon, who's still on the roster, which
McKinnon's coming back.
I predicted to be cut. I'm still waiting on that to come to fruition.
He may go to the Bears. That would be an excellent move.
And then you also got Raheem Mostert as well.
Mostert, yep.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people in this offense. Granted, Shanahan knows Tevin Coleman from his days in Atlanta. I mean, maybe he's bringing him in with the understanding that, hey, you're going to be my guy. Here's what's going to be going on, But in which, the 49ers have a bevy of riches at running back to be able to do. I mean, if you're them, why don't you go out and toss that back for you in a deal? Or I'm sure, just like you said, probably go ahead and release Jerick McKinnon. But Tevin Coleman right now, I'm not a fan of. He's probably going to get drafted as a late RB2, maybe early running back 3. That's not something I want to be drinking there. I'm not a fan. I want somebody that's bona fide, top guy, or at least somebody that's going to have a chance to do that. And he doesn't strike me as somebody that's going to do that much.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. I like the move of Coleman to the 49ers, but I don't like the fact that they've got so many backs in that backfield. It limits his potential. He's the guy that they wanted Jerick McKinnon to be last year before the ACL tear. Shanahan has previous experience with Tevin Coleman. So I think if there's more of a clear path to touches on a weekly basis, Tevin Coleman was a guy that I would definitely buy in drafts this upcoming year. But right now it's a little bit cloudy. But with Mark Ingram, like I said, easily he's a solid RB2 right now. He's going to get the majority of the touches in the Ravens' backfield when it's not Lamar Jackson taking off with the football. So Mark Ingram, I was kind of writing a little bit on the Ravens and their team preview just the other night, and I kind of feel like, over the last 2 to 3 seasons, with Alvin Kamara splitting time in the backfield with the Saints, Mark Ingram doesn't have the tread on the tires that you would think for a running back at his age currently, so he has every bit of a chance to kind of push towards that kind of lower end RB1, high end RB2 plateau. If he gets in the end zone enough, if he passes out of the backfield, which he's shown that he can do. But I like Mark Ingram as we get closer to the season right now. It's, like I said, solid RB2 for me.
I agree. I think it's one of those things that, the last couple of years we saw Mark Ingram, catch a lot of balls. He is obviously way more talented than Gus Edwards in that offense. Gus Edwards in a PPR league. Granted, we're probably going to have some action from Kenneth Dixon in there who let's remember, B, I know you've been on him for years, but I called it last year that he was going to come back in that offense and do some things. He didn't do a ton, but he did more than I think you predicted. But I think Mark Ingram, has all the chances to be able to come out and be. I don't think I'm going to go as high as RB1, but he's going to be in that mid RB2. I'm going to probably have him ranked about 15 or 16 or 17.
Yeah, that's. Let's see. Let me get a real good, quick close eye right quick on where I have him. Yeah, I've got him right there around that range in the 18 to 20 range on Mark Ingram right now. So some guys I like a little bit ahead of him. I think Lamar Jackson kind of hurts his potential somewhat, but like I said, there's every bit of the opportunity for him to get double-digit scores, 1,100 yards on the ground. Those numbers alone are going to be able to put him in that, like I said, low-end RB1, high-end RB2 plateau area. So buying Mark Ingram currently, but we'll see how things shake out after the draft, see how things are looking after some of these teams are kind of built a little bit more. Last thing we'll touch on real quick, with touch up on free agency and some of the things that have gone forth over the last few weeks. Nick Foles to the Jaguars. I could not make this any more of a meh signing.
Yeah.
Nick Foles to the Jaguars. I don't think it does anything for fantasy. Nick Foles is not in Philadelphia anymore. We've seen Nick Foles go outside of Philadelphia and struggle to the point of almost retiring from football. I understand that they've talked about implementing the same offense that he had in Philadelphia, but this is not the Philadelphia Eagles. This is the Jacksonville Jaguars. That offense, whether you like it or not, is going to go through Leonard Fournette. So, what's your opinion on Nick Foles? Worth drafting, or are you going to let someone else have him?
So here's my take. I don't want him as my number one, obviously.
No.
Don't want him as my number two. But depending on the league, if it's a league like we do in the SBFFC, it's really a thing like Pat Mahomes early on in drafts last year. Wasn't necessarily the biggest Mahomes fan, but it's one of those leagues where if you are getting some good points for finding that late guy and tossing out somebody on, you could pick a whole lot worse than Nick Foles. But do I think he's going to have a great year? Not really. But he's one of those guys that maybe he comes out of left field and just puts together a top 12 season. I don't see it, but there's a whole lot worse situations that you can take a chance on than Nick Foles. With that being said, unless he's a number 3 quarterback for me, which I don't usually take, I ain't touching him.
Yeah, the only way I would touch Nick Foles at all right now in 2019, getting ready for fantasy drafts, Superflex 2 quarterback league, where you're going to want to roster 3 to 4 quarterbacks. The Scott Fishbowl, like I participated in last year. I would want Nick Foles in that instance. But really, the biggest area where Nick Foles will be valuable this year is late in a best ball draft when you're taking when you take 3 quarterbacks per se. Nick Foles will be a guy that'll come out in week 7 and go for 335 yards and 4 touchdowns. But you are not starting him in your season-long league because you've got Aaron Rodgers as your starter. But in best ball, you're getting Nick Foles points ahead of Aaron Rodgers' crappy 2-touchdown week that he just put down. He's gonna be a guy that's gonna be more valuable in that format over anything, I think, right now. So Nick Foles for me, only a best ball candidate when it comes to fantasy football in 2019. But that's kind of putting a bow on free agency, things like that have kind of hit the fantasy pike newsstands here the last few weeks. But I really want to kind of jump in and talk about some of the NFL draft stuff.
2.5 weeks away.
Yeah, right. We're looking at 17 days now, I think is what it is. Yeah.
You're soon.
So we're right there at it. Just kind of want to touch on some of the.
Speaking of right there at it, we're going to be right there at it.
Right on site. Exactly. WooFantasy. Ever present at the NFL draft. First time ever for me. Your second draft live
My
attendance.
second. I lucked out. I went to Chicago a couple of years ago and the second go around in Chicago when they had it. It was incredibly cold. This was the year that Carson Wentz got taken number one overall. It was
Yep.
incredibly cold, incredibly dreary, and incredibly fun.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
And as we know, Nashville usually does things up the right way. So we're expecting a very, very fun atmosphere and experience in Nashville for the NFL draft this year. Uh, I mean, we're likely to be kind of put in a scenario too down there in that area where I think the schedule is going to work itself out to where we're not going to have Predators hockey, but there's a chance we could. Maybe that Saturday night when the draft is going on in the early part of the day.
That would be crazy.
Yeah, I mean, Predators now in the playoffs. First game of the playoffs kicks off Wednesday night against the Dallas Stars. So we could be in and amongst it in a sport atmosphere that weekend in Nashville. So as we've seen before, between you and I, we've been down there. It gets pretty nuts. It gets pretty crazy. NFL draft should be no different whatsoever. So let's kind of go over a few of the prospects, kind of touch on some of these guys here and there. We'll kind of give some takes on landing spots, where we think these guys are going to go, where we would like for them to go. We'll start it off with the quarterbacks. I think the no-brainer right off the bat, Kyler Murray. We've talked about it. Almost seems like it's just lock, stock, and barrel 100% is going to go to the Arizona Cardinals with the number one pick overall. Do you think that's a smoke screen? Do you think they go another way? Or do you feel like they are 100% going Kyler Murray, number one, Arizona Cardinals?
Yeah, I think all indications at this point are that they're going to go Kyler Murray. I mean, it could be a smoke screen. I mean, they just drafted Rosen last year, but let's face it. If you're going number one, if you're Cliff Kingsbury, same thing with Bruce Arians going to Tampa. I mean, that is his guy. Nagy with Trubisky, that's his guy. It seems like Kingsbury, Kyler Murray is his guy. So yeah. I think that the only reason that hadn't been put forth right now that hasn't gotten locked in is they're still trying to get as much value out of Josh Rosen as they can in a deal. Is the only reason that hadn't got announced. So.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I read this morning was that they kind of started off some of their offseason activities. The Arizona Cardinals did this morning. Josh Rosen, very first person through the door today, trying to make an example, whether it be for Arizona Cardinals or whether it be for his future employer, which I think the leader in the clubhouse right now is the Washington Redskins. Is some things that I've been reading is that the Redskins are probably showing the most interest. So Josh Rosen to the Redskins might be a possibility the closer we get to the draft. But yeah, Kyler Murray. Are you taking Kyler Murray in redraft in 2019? I mean, we already know he's going to be the first quarterback selected in dynasty and rookie drafts. So. What are your feelings? Is
he though? Is he going to be the? No,
I believe
I don't. I don't think so.
If we
might go.
If we do a poll of 9 out of 10 fantasy owners that are doing rookie drafts before the start of the 2019 season, bing, Kyler Murray, first quarterback off the board.
You know what? Good for you. That's why I zag when other people zag.
Good.
I would take Dwayne Haskins goes to the Giants. I like that receiving core. I like that offense a whole lot better than I like Kyler Murray and him going to the Cardinals. A whole lot better.
Which I'll get into Dwayne Haskins here in a second. I have a different landing spot for Dwayne Haskins than the New York Giants, but yes. And if you've read my team
if he goes there,
I was going to say if you've read my team previews, you know where I'm thinking on Dwayne Haskins. But anyways, Kyler Murray, yes, I feel like the consensus will be he'll be the top pick in rookie drafts at the quarterback position. Is there any value though in season-long leagues for a Kyler Murray in 2019?
I think it depends on where he goes. If he goes to the Cardinals, yes. I think he has a Lamar Jackson-esque type of year. I think he runs for some yards, he throws for some yards. I think he's one of those guys. But I say that to say he throws the ball better than Lamar Jackson.
Yes, I'll give you that.
But I would want him as a low end number 2. If I've got him any higher than that, I'm not liking it. But does he hold value? Yes, in our league, like we do with Mr. Charisma there, where you get a lot more points for rushing yards. He's going to be a guy that's going to be valuable and might even be a number 1 in that kind of league. But most leagues are not like that. I want a guy that if I'm getting 6 points for a passing touchdown, I'm getting a guy that's throwing touchdowns, not running for him, because I don't, you still got David Johnson there. At best, probably low end number 2 for me.
Yeah.
In that scenario.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be a guy, if you draft him at all in redraft this year, you're definitely going to be taking a stab at one of the top 3 to 4 quarterbacks in fantasy. And you're going to be starting those guys on a weekly basis, and now at this point you're taking upside. Again, you're going to pull a flyer on a Kyler Murray just to see how things pan out midway through the season. So, I mean, for me, I'm not going to be on the Kyler Murray at all this year in redraft for sure. I just don't foresee or envision a way in which he's going to wind up on any of my rosters. But like I said, I'm not drafting him in a rookie draft, because I think someone else will get to Kyler Murray before I can. That's how I'll state that. But consensus, I think he's going to be the top quarterback selected in those drafts. But let's go ahead.
Where would you ideally take him in a dynasty draft? Where do you think is an maybe not ideal spot, but where do you think
the construction of your roster?
Okay, but let's just say I need a quarterback and I'm drafting.
I want to take? Let's just float this out. Like, let's say, would I take a Kyler Murray over a Darrell Henderson or Miles Sanders or a Deebo Samuel? No, I wouldn't. I would take one of those position players over Kyler Murray in a heartbeat. But if I'm in a situation where I feel like I've got a pretty solid core group of guys at running back and receiver to play with week in and week out, and I know that the success of my team moving forward is at the quarterback spot, you're gonna take the quarterback a little bit earlier. It's just the nature of the beast. That's how it is. If I'm in a position to where, like, I feel like I'm, say, 8, 9, 10, somewhere in that draft spot, I've got a Tom Brady or an aging veteran that's made me a competitive team year in and year out. Would I be willing to go ahead and have the reset button at my disposal by taking a Kyler Murray? Sure. I would take a Kyler Murray at like 9, 10 in a rookie draft if I'm in a good spot in other positions depth-wise. I do think he's a first-round pick in rookie drafts. Might not be amongst the group of guys that we draft with that have been.
I got Baker Mayfield round 2 last year.
Exactly.
I mean, it was one of those things where most of the guys with teams in their situations in our league are in a pretty good spot as far as quarterbacks goes. So it was one of those years, and obviously last year was a great year for skill guys to where you had a Baker Mayfield that dropped down, especially all the quarterbacks available there. So.
Yeah, there was a lot of people there, but yeah, we're going to segue into previously aforementioned Dwayne Haskins, who is likely the number 2 quarterback in this draft class, which early on I had, until it was almost set in stone that Kyler Murray is going to be the first pick in this draft, I had Dwayne Haskins as my number 1 quarterback in this class for a long period of time. Dwayne Haskins, you feel like his best fit is possibly New York?
Let's say, I mean, with the top teams, and the makeup, and obviously let's remember that the Giants do have some good picks here early in the draft. I think amongst the teams there, I mean, let's take a look. He's not going to the Niners. He's not going to the Jets.
He's not going to the well. He could go to the Raiders. Okay, he could go to the Raiders if they're ready to move on from Carr. Not going to the Bucs. So for the Bucs?
No, the Raiders. You mentioned the Raiders. That's a potential landing spot.
Okay,
Not what I have him down for.
A team jumping up. So in all likelihood, there could be a team jumping up because let's face it, the Jets, they're probably going to take a D lineman there. You can trade down a couple spots to be able to do that. So unless it's a team like maybe I guess the Broncos or the Bengals, maybe the Dolphins moving up, but I don't see. I really, unless it's the Bengals, I really don't see a better situation than him going to the Giants.
And ding, 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 ding. You hit the nail on the head of my landing spot for Dwayne Haskins, the Cincinnati Bengals.
Brandon Murchison likes to say the Bengals.
The Bengals. The Bungles. I have a feeling that they're going to go ahead and try to pull the trigger and have what I just said a minute ago, have the reset button in place. You've got the new head coach. You've pretty much shown that your roster is ready for a rebuild and kind of to turn things around. You've got a running back to build around in Joe Mixon. AJ Green potentially being a trade piece that you can move as you want to start to kind of build a more young nucleus on your roster. Dwayne Haskins could be a guy that's selected as the quarterback for the new head coach moving forward. I just think things are kind of lining up perfectly for him to go to the Cincinnati Bengals. So that's my landing spot. And I think, fantasy-wise, I think that's going to be a good landing spot for him moving forward. So
that's an Ohio guy. He's going to put butts in seats.
Exactly. It seems like the cards are there. And he's going to be a guy that, he's not going to be a fantasy force this year whatsoever in redraft because Andy Dalton's still there. He'll get a year to learn behind Andy Dalton.
Yeah, but Andy Dalton keeps getting hurt every year.
Andy Dalton has been getting hurt here lately. Yes, that's true. You could have a Lamar Jackson situation where injury forces the young quarterback another lineup, and then he just doesn't relinquish the job. So it could be the situation that you kind of run into a little bit for a Dwayne Haskins as well. So that's where I kind of have him landing. That's my preferred landing spot for a Dwayne Haskins as well. I think that does make him a solid second-round pick in some rookie drafts, kind of like where you said you've got, in our dynasty that we've been doing for, God bless, like 20 years now. Got Baker Mayfield in the second round.
15. We started in 2004.
Yeah, it feels like it's been 20 years. But, yeah, no, you got Baker in the second round last year. I think Haskins is going to be a guy that you're going to see move in the second round in a lot of rookie drafts this year. And with him being on the Bengals, I think that's going to be a guy that can eventually play out similar. He's going to probably hold a lot of low-end quarterback one value for a few years. Not going to be a guy that you're going to see that's going to be an upper echelon elite quarterback, but he's a guy that you can draft and win with. So that's what I think on Dwayne Haskins. But really, there's only one more quarterback I think in this class worth talking about in terms of fantasy, and that's Drew Lock. We could probably touch on Daniel Jones real quick as well, but Drew Lock. What's your take on Drew Lock? Where you think he's going?
Under that scenario, for you, if the Bengals jump ahead of the Giants and take him, granted, I have not kept my ear to the rumor mill like you have here, but if that happens, I've heard the Giants, at least early on, really like Daniel Jones a lot more. I don't know if that. I think that was before the combine, so maybe that's changed. But apparently they really liked him. So the Giants go with Daniel Jones over Locke. I don't know, but I think Locke the ideal scenario.
I'll say that right now, real quick, just to jump in real fast. If Daniel Jones goes to the Giants at pick 6, it's an utter travesty, and the Giants should just have their card revoked for an NFL franchise. I have Daniel Jones going to the Giants at pick 17. That is, if they hold their picks and they stay the same. So I do have the Giants ending with Daniel Jones, but at pick 17.
At 6.
Yeah,
and that should be the right scenario.
So
with that, I would say Locke would
probably be in a great scenario, would probably be going right to where a lot of folks have him projected and going to the Broncos. Do the Broncos, right. but do the Broncos take that chance yet again? Like they did on Paxton Lynch and go another quarterback here in 3 years of them taking Paxton Lynch, they go another round one quarterback. That remains to be seen. Does John Elway like that egg on his face? Does he want somebody to come in and take the reins there? I mean, does he have enough time to develop a quarterback to be able to save his job there? I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Joe Flacco's their quarterback for at least the year. So Drew Lock will be a guy that can come in and sit, learn the NFL. I just think the dude's got such a fiery arm that John Elway won't, like, he'll just be mesmerized by it, and probably has been through pro day workout, scouting combine, interviews that they've done with the kid. I mean, they've hit the trifecta with him. They watched him at the combine, they watched him at pro days, they've interviewed him as well. Every sense of the word says that the Broncos are going to take this kid at pick 10. I mean, there's no value this year, of course, because Joe Flacco's there. I don't think Joe Flacco's ego is going to let him be outshined by a rookie quarterback in 2 years in a row. So I think Joe Flacco will be the bona fide starter for the Broncos for at least the 2019 season. But Drew Lock, I mean, I do like I like his chances in that offense moving forward. I mean, you've got Cortland Sutton, who's on the verge of being a fantasy starter. You've got Emmanuel Sanders coming back from injury. I don't know how well he'll play out in the early part of the season or even moving on. 2020, he's probably not going to be on the Broncos roster. But, yeah, they got Deshaun Hamilton as well that's showed flashes late in the year last year. There's pieces that Drew Lock can work with in this offense, and not to mention the fact that, who knows, they might go out and get another receiver once Emmanuel Sanders moves on as well. So I do like Drew Lock. Moving forward, dynasty-wise, I think late second, early third-round pick in some of these rookie drafts is probably where he's going to slot in at. But just a little bit of trivia real quick that I wanted to touch on. You mentioned Paxton Lynch. Paxton Lynch is now a member of what NFL franchise?
Ooh. Well, it shows you how much I've kept up with Paxton Lynch.
Exactly.
I was going to say the Denver Broncos. So let's say, the Memphis Express.
No, he is not an AFL.
I'm gonna. You know what? I'm gonna throw a curveball because I have no idea. Miami Dolphins.
Negative.
Okay, I have no idea who.
Yeah, Seattle Seahawks. He's playing behind Russell Wilson. So that's just
may not be the.
Yeah, I mean that's not the greatest place for him to be. God bless him. He's still got a job in the NFL holding a clipboard. But anyways, moving on to the running backs. We'll kind of start speeding through a little bit of the process here. Running backs. Let's say let me. I think we can kind of come back with another podcast here in the next week or two. To really more go in depth with running back and receiver a little bit more because we're already
and tight end.
Yeah, and tight end. We're already at an hour on this podcast, and I think we could probably go an entire another hour on running back, wide receiver, and tight end alone. So just as a kind of as a teaser to a future episode before we head to Nashville for the draft, best running back in the class based on the landing spot would be for you.
Ooh. I think at least just that round one value. I think if Josh Jacobs goes to the Raiders, that is a win-win for everybody.
Yuck. I'm not a big fan of Josh Jacobs. I've kind of mentioned that over and over again.
I'm not either, but at least from a guy going to a team in a situation, I don't know what other round one team is going to get a running back and just be like, oh yeah, this guy's going right in and being our guy. If there's another situation out there that has that, you let me know, but I don't know it.
So let's see here. I'll point out three. Not naming Josh Jacobs. David,
I'm talking about teams.
Oh no, I don't. I mean, really right now, Josh Jacobs' potential fantasy landing spot, I think, could be the Raiders. I was talking about this with another draft guy on Twitter just the other night. Um, I think where he was almost destined to fall was going to be the Eagles, but now with that Jordan Howard trade, I think that's pretty much all said and done. So the Raiders are a likely landing spot. The Dolphins are a likely landing spot for a Josh Jacobs. Tampa Bay Buccaneers are a likely landing spot for Josh Jacobs. Buffalo Bills could be a potential suitor for Josh Jacobs as well. Those are some spots as I think Josh Jacobs could land in. David Montgomery to the Raiders for me, I think is going to be a win-win. Like you mentioned with Josh Jacobs, I think. Isaiah Crowell is technically the starter for the Raiders right now, but we've seen Isaiah Crowell. We know what we're getting from Isaiah Crowell. I think the offense is best suited to put a rookie or a young running back in this position. It's going to help the offense look more fluid than with the plotter that is Isaiah Crowell. And I think David Montgomery is going to be the type of back that could come into that system. He's not going to blow the doors off as far as with his speed or anything like that, but the guy he can hit a hole with ferocity. He's very elusive. He bounces off tackles. He knows how.
He's my favorite running back in his career. I don't think Josh Jacobs is going to be great.
No,
I think David Montgomery, Darrell Henderson are going to be obviously depending on where they go. But
exactly.
Those are going to be my guys.
And that's what I was talking about with this guy on Twitter as well. And it's Matt Hicks that I was talking to on Twitter. So if you don't follow Matt Hicks, definitely look him up. Does a lot of great work when it comes to NFL draft coverage, things like that. But I mean, this entire draft is all predicated. I've never really seen an offensive draft like this in recent memory, where you don't have solidified studs at every single position. The running back class, they're not the best that we've seen in recent memory, but some of these guys can have fantasy value this year, especially, and moving forward in Dynasty as well. But it all falls on landing spot. It's all predicated on where they go in this draft, what team they fall to, what their role is going to be in an offense, and things like that. So David Montgomery, like I said, to the Raiders seems like a great fit that could help score. It'd be a great fantasy landing spot, if not a great NFL landing spot for the guy. You mentioned Darrell Henderson. I've actually got him going to the Dolphins in round 2 in some of my current mocks right now. I think that's a great landing spot for him. He can kind of help alleviate a little bit of the pressure off of Kenyon Drake, who the team has shown that they don't want to give the ball to 20 times a game. They want to be able to kind of put him in spurts, let him do his thing. I think Darrell Henderson's a guy that can be a great complement to a Kenyon Drake. Kalen Ballage be the third down back, catching passes out of the backfield if it's not going to be Drake out there as well. And then third, I've got a slight inkling on Damian Harris going to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in round 2. And he seems like the perfect fit, the perfect type of running back to go into a Bruce Arians offense. He can run between the tackles. He can bounce outside. He can catch passes out of the backfield as well. Although he didn't do it in just tons and tons of pass catches at Alabama, he's shown that he can catch the ball at Alabama. And I think he's, they've got Peyton Barber. They've got Ronald Jones still on this roster. But I think Bruce Arians is going to want to get his type of guy in this offense. And I think jumping into the running back pool and grabbing a Damian Harris might be that type of a move. I mean, he might be the next coming of David Johnson for Bruce Arians in this offense. You never know. So I like Damian Harris if he falls to that spot.
I mean, word is they're trying to move Gerald McCoy, so maybe that's just a thing where they have clearly got to get better on the defensive side of the ball. But I mean, let's also remember that they need some freaking offensive linemen. I mean, those guys had no running lanes last year. I had Marion Barber
good God. Peyton Barber. Wow. I had Peyton Barber in some leagues last year, which I was a big proponent of, just literally for the chances. He rewarded me a couple weeks, but it was horrible watching him run, and just how many times that he should have gotten more yards on those plays, but his offensive line were absolutely horrible. I don't know. I really just don't think the Bucs should invest a pick in a running back, but I'm sure Bruce Arians will assess these guys early on and figure out, should I go running back that early or not. Ronald Jones, I think, is a dynamic guy, but I don't know. I don't know if it's something in between the ears that's going on wrong there. If he just didn't gel with that offense last year, but
that's the biggest thing with him.
If a running back goes to Tampa, I'm not. I mean, it's gonna be tough. I mean, you got a couple guys to be able to compete there. Where to be, you have a couple of also ran in situations like with Oakland. So whatever running back goes to Oakland, whenever they go, to me that's easily the top running back situation. I mean, if somebody goes to the Dolphins, you're going to compete with Kenyon Drake.
Yep.
You go to the Bucs, you're going to have that Ronald Jones in the background. You're going to have Barber in the background that they're going to possibly get time. It's like a Niners situation. I mean, you've got guys you compete with. The Bills, you still got LaShawn McCoy out there. I mean, the Raiders are the one situation where it's whoever goes to the Raiders.
That was one I was going to touch on.
Be your top ranked guy.
That was another one I was going to touch on. The Buffalo Bills, they need a running back in this class. I mean, they've got LaShawn McCoy.
Oh, 100%.
They've got Chris Ivory. They have the two oldest running backs in the NFL rostered as their one and their two. So, I mean, that's just a no-brainer that they're going to get a running back in this draft class. I've got them pegged as getting Rodney Anderson in the third round, the running back out of Oklahoma who was electric and who would be my number one running back in this class if it was not for the torn ACL last year. It's going to slide him down the little boards a little bit because, obviously we've seen in the past players coming back for an ACL injury. It's not the same player a year removed. They need a full year getting healthy, getting their timing back. I think Rodney Anderson is a perfect fit in Buffalo to take the reins from LaShawn McCoy moving forward in that offense. So keep that one in mind. So all the rookie drafters out there, if the Buffalo Bills go with a running back like a Rodney Anderson, scoop him up in your rookie drafts for sure. Wide receivers. We'll do the same thing with wide receiver real quick as we're kind of going to try to wrap this up. We're a little over an hour on the podcast right now. Wide receivers, your top receiver based on your landing spot.
Top receiver, I think N'Keal Harry. Wherever that man goes, I am buying. I would love for him. I don't think he's going to fall that far, but maybe he does. Maybe he falls to the Packers, and the Packers dare take him. In the mid-teens there, that would be an amazing pick and destination for him to be able to go to.
You know where I have Harry slotted right now?
I'd be interested to find out.
In my personal mock draft, I have N'Keal Harry going 19th overall to the Tennessee Titans.
Another 2 out of 3 years going wide receiver round one, that would not be good.
I have a feeling this will be a team that'll be coming out here in the next few coming days of my team previews on RotoBaller. I just have this feeling this is going to be the last year for Mariota to prove himself. They're going to want to put every single best piece that they can put around him to help him succeed. Right now, Corey Davis has been kind of a little bit of a disappointment based solely on Marcus Mariota and his inability as a passer. You're going to have Delaney Walker coming back. They added Adam Humphries to play out of the slot. They really do need another outside receiver to kind of complete this offense. So for me, taking a guy like a N'Keal Harry there, that pretty much puts the onus on Marcus Mariota to go, here, we've got everything to help you succeed right now, and if you falter this year, you're gone. So that's kind of what my mindset was in having Harry fall to the Titans at 19. It's just the wide receivers are all over in this class right now.
There's a lot of good ones. I'm excited to talk wide receivers here with you in a couple weeks.
Yeah, it's a pretty deep class. I've got Metcalf going to the Redskins ahead of Harry in the first round. It just seems like that's going to kind of be a move that they make. But for me, I think the bet I'll point out 2 picks for me. Second round, same team you mentioned, the Green Bay Packers. A.J. Brown, wide receiver from Ole Miss. That's where I've got A.J. Brown going right now. And for me, I think he immediately would vault up into the top receiver as far as rookies go in the upcoming fantasy football season. He's going to just slide right in, be a starter in the Packers offense, who will now, like Aaron Rodgers has something to prove, and Mike McCarthy gone, Randall Cobb's gone. They need somebody that has somewhat of a presence opposite of Devontae Adams, not named Geronimo Allison or Marquez Valdez-Scantling. So I think A.J. Brown is going to be a guy that's going to come in right away and do some damage on that offense and could probably put up lower end wide receiver 3 numbers as early as this year if this is the landing spot. How are you feeling on that landing spot, A.J. Brown?
I mean, it would be bad. I don't think he's the last till round 2, though.
I have a feeling he will. I think a lot of these offense players you're going to see kind of slip into the second round in some of these drafts. But yeah, now I mean, I think that's just a match made in heaven for me. A.J. Brown playing primarily out of the slot, used to getting a lot of looks, a lot of targets, a lot of catches at Ole Miss. I mean, dude's going to make an immediate connection with an Aaron Rodgers. So I love an A.J. Brown to the Packers' potential. But my second one's probably going to go deeper into the draft. David Seals to the New Orleans Saints. Immediate reaction.
I mean, it kind of reminds me. I don't know why I see Willie Snead. Maybe it's the same amount of letters in their last name that seems like a guy like that. I don't know.
Yeah, it just it feels like
an
obvious fit.
I think it's so early on some of these guys. I think it's tough to even project beyond mid round 2 on some of these guys where they go, because there's just so many things and scenarios to be able to go.
Only thing I have
I guess
as a fallback.
We're supposed to be teasing people, Brandon.
That's true.
Teasing.
Yeah, I'm going to tease them a little bit, but that's just, I'll say this, I mean, because I don't think we'll really go that far in depth into getting as low as a David Seals if we go into talking, say, the top 10 receivers in this draft class, because I don't have him as a top 10 receiver currently, but the Saints pulled David Seals aside at the Senior Bowl practice and the week during the Senior Bowl to talk to him and really kind of get early indications on how they feel about the kids. So I think that, I mean, they're gonna be in on a David Seals. That's the only reason I kind of went that route with that pick. But I do like the landing spot if that were to be the case, but not as near as much as an A.J. Brown, like I said. So we'll kind of just wrapping it up, put the bow on it. Like I said, we'll come back here in the next week or so. As we get ready to get prepped to go to Nashville and cover the draft live through podcasting, through articles that I'll write for Roto Baller, I'm sure. But yeah, I mean, draft is right around the corner. Like I just said, we're 18 days away from it. The excitement is starting to build. My first experience live at an NFL draft, I'm ready for it. Doesn't
talking about it all of our lives going together.
Here we go. I mean, it doesn't hurt. Does not hurt the fact that I do all this work for a website now that I'm covering a lot of NFL draft stuff, and I feel like it's a part of my job to have to go and to cover this. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it, and we'll see how things shake out as we get to the draft. But yeah, we're going to come back to you here in the next week or so. We're going to go a little bit more into detail with the running back class, with the wide receivers and the tight ends, kind of go over some possible landing spots, destinations, and fantasy implications with these players. So until then, I am, of course, the Roto superstar himself, Brandon Murkison. That is Nick Heffley. Nick, where can we find you on Twitter?
Real FF goat, baby.
Real
No,
FF
leave
goat.
out the baby. Leave out the baby part. It's just the real FF goat.
Yeah, the real FF goat. Go and check his stuff out there as well. Don't forget to follow the podcast page itself, Woo_fantasy. And like I said, every single day I've got an article coming out on rotoballer.com, getting ready for NFL drafts. Got team previews.
32 for 32.
32 for 32. Yeah, I'm doing the yeoman's work of covering one team every single day. There's not many other guys out there in the fantasy industry that puts the work in to get these teams put out every single day 1 month ahead of the draft. But I am doing that work for you guys to get you prepped and ready for the NFL draft. Like I said, go to rotoballer.com and check that out. But until next time, we will catch you later on another episode of Woo Fantasy.